Hello, I'm Dr. Nathaniel Wilson, and you're going to think this is an exaggeration. But if you will join us this week, I am going to talk to you about something that is absolutely an American revolution, and it has to do with apostolics. Join me.
Welcome to All Things Apostolic, where you get the latest apostolic news and analysis, where you can participate in exciting Pentecostal developments, and where you just might learn something interesting about your world. And now, your host, Dr. Nathaniel J. Wilson.
Whoa, it's that favorite time of the week for you again. This is All Things Apostolic, and I am Dr. Nathaniel Wilson, and I am excited to be with you today. And this is the last week of January 2018. When that calendar clicks over to February, we are already deep into the race to the end of the year. So there's still time for us to think about how we're going to organize our lives in the will of God for 2018. So if you've never joined us before, I'm glad that you've joined us. You can contact us, and thank you for you that have contacted us. All of them aren't good, but most of them are good. And some of you have questions. Some of you have questions we haven't got to, but we will try to get to those also. So we haven't forgot about you. You can contact us by going to allthingsapostolic.com. There you can either email us or there is a phone number. You can call and leave a message. And the good team that puts this all together and helps us make sure that I get all of those messages, and we will do our best to respond. Oftentimes it is something to talk about. Can you talk about this? Or can you discuss this? And so I still have 2 or 3 of those things that I haven't got to that have come in the last week or two that we'll try to get to. Now, last week, well, let me first say thank you to all of you who have responded and let us know, at least let us know that you are with us and that you're listening, viewing, joining with us. Holy Ghost Radio, we're on Holy Ghost Radio 3 times each week with this particular program, this particular edition of the program. And Pacific Standard Time, now you have to make that match yours if you're in other time zones, but Pacific Standard Time, we're on at 7 o'clock Monday night, noon on Tuesday, and 4 p.m. on Friday. So we welcome you to join us. Tell your friends about it because we think there's going to be some things here that could be beneficial to them, okay? So last week, we're talking about things that prepare us for the future. And last week, we talked about how we prepare ourselves for the future and still do it in an apostolic context. And we talked about education. We talked about the options for education among apostolics. And we discovered, now if you haven't heard that one, it will help you to hear that one, and this one will even be more beneficial to you. So if you will go to allthingsapostolic.com, you can, if it's up there, you can retrieve last week's program and you can listen to it, and then this one will make more sense to you. Now, I don't know if they'll have it up there that quick, but they will try to have it that quick. So, but anyway, what we talked about was the dilemma that apostolics are in our day, and that there is a tremendous amount of churn among apostolics. There is, unfortunately, there is, and sadly, there is a cratering of apostolics with the distinctiveness and identity that they have held in Bible days and that they've held throughout history. And we are watching a cratering of that among present-day apostolics. And in many cases, it's having devastating consequences in which children and grandchildren of some people who were raised apostolic have no concept of what it really means to be apostolic, because they have all drifted so far until their identity has been lost. Well, that's not everybody. In contrast to that, there's two other ways to look at this. There is a group that sees all of that and then tries to prevent that from happening by isolating themselves. So they're isolated out here in a kind of a world of their own, and their way of not falling to things is to stay in isolation. But isolation itself becomes a factor for distortion, and it distorts the mandate, the scriptural mandate of what the church's definition is. And the church is intended, like Naboth's vineyard, to be hard against the king's wall of his palace. In other words, hard against the world. The church and the believer is salt, and the church and believer is light, both of which penetrate and impact and revolutionize and change the city. You're a light set on a hill. And so we don't put that light under a bushel. So the challenge to the church, and believe you me, the church is capable of this. People who think you have to run off and hide out there and have your little clique somewhere to survive and be apostolic are missing the theological meaning of what the church is supposed to be. The church, by its very nature, stays hard-pressed against the world. It stays involved with what is happening in the world that impacts the possibilities of people's spiritual well-being and even, of course, salvation. And so that's challenging. At first, in a simplistic way of thinking, it seems easier to run off in the desert out there somewhere, which has been tried, by the way, over the centuries, all the way back from a couple centuries after the early church. They got into this hiding business or isolation ideas. And so the church is hard against the world. It is not of the world, but it is in the world. And so you have to hold that separation while staying close to the world in terms of involvement and in terms of penetration and in terms of loving souls and bringing them into the church. And I know apostolic churches that if people come that are not dressed properly, I'm not talking about sensually, just that aren't dressed according to apostolic standards, or if people come with other things that belie their worldliness and the fact they're not saved, they are made uncomfortable on purpose. And the chance of them being saved is greatly reduced by the biases of the congregation that is operating out of fear that they're going to lose something, not understanding that what they have is greater than anything that could walk in that door, and that love and the power of God is greater and has power over demonic influences of every kind. So anyway, that's a part of the apostolic movement that exists, that we love people that are there, but we do not, in our own lives, tolerate any kind of idea that that is biblical, because it is not. And then in the middle of all of that, from both directions, in the middle of all that, there are people who are absolutely having apostolic revival on a scale that heretofore we do not know of. I mean, things happening that I don't think I've ever seen happen in my life that are taking place. I mean, just powerful, supernatural things. I mean, last Sunday night, my wife, Mary Wilson, was leading the service into the Spirit. And the Holy Ghost broke out, and 7 or 8 new people that I know of received the baptism of the Holy Ghost. And there was a man there with a heart condition who was going in for a operational procedure the next morning. And when he got home from church that night, he had received a email from his doctor that said, that was 11:45 Sunday night, that the doctor wrote the email, and he said that evening on Sunday night he had checked the x-rays and said, I'm looking at your latest x-rays, and your latest x-rays show that there is no procedure necessary, even though the earlier x-rays had showed that, and the operational procedure was scheduled for Monday morning. And God healed him, and he was filled with the Holy Ghost. So that's just Sunday night. So there are many things happening with Apostolics that are dynamic. I just talked to a preacher this week who has a tremendous global ministry. Just a fine man, not somebody that's trying to be something. He's just a fine man. He now has apostolic influence and teaching and helping and guiding ministers in second and third world countries. And he is now individually touching 30 nations. One man. There's less than 200 nations, if I'm not mistaken, in the United Nations. And there's less than 300 nations in the world. And so here's one man. I think there's about 260. I don't know, but you can look it up. You can Google anything these days. But whatever it is, here's one man. So God is taking people and supernaturally fulfilling Psalm 91. It says, one shall put 1,000 to flight, and two shall put 10,000 to flight. So God's math is pretty good. And this is why apostolic people who are truly full of the love of God, truly love people, and truly anointed, and truly have the revelation of God. This is why a small group can have such an ameliorative, positive impact on the world, bringing salvation and wholeness and deliverance and hope and potential to people around the world. So all of that is taking place while all of this other is taking place. So everything's not bad, but you have to walk through the jetsam and flotsam, all the debris that's floating on the surface of the water. And people do have to be careful today to find churches that are preaching truth and standing for something, and at the same time reaching into our world with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it's a delight every week to see young people. I'm talking about young adults. I'm talking about teenagers. I'm talking about lots of them going out every Saturday into the worst areas of our city and taking the gospel in there. And on Sunday, ministering to these people. And we have people all the time getting baptized from the work of young people that are less than 25 years old down to 12 years old. So all is not bad. There's a lot of good things that are taking place. In the midst of that, however, our world is changing so rapidly, and we talked about this last week. It's changing so rapidly that for our people to stay up with being used of God to the fullness of their possibilities, you have to give attention to what's going on, and you have to adjust accordingly. And I talked last week about the fact that my parents were in a generation that people had a good education if they'd completed the 10th grade. Well, now that doesn't work. And so last week we talked about education. We talked about the fact that if a person does get an education, they end up going to universities where there are people who, in terms of apostolic values, are heathens, even of Christian values of any kind. And these are the teachers that are teaching our young people, and they're having to ferret their way through this, and all of them don't make it. It's a minefield. Some of them lose their way in these situations. So do we or don't we? Do we send them or don't we send them? Well, the ideal thing would be for there to be apostolic schools for them to go with, where the teachers are all apostolic and where the courses all are taught from an apostolic world view. The problem with that is the schools that we have are not regionally accredited. And we talked last week about the fact that the only accreditation in America that is across the board, what every university, big or small, state or independent or private, regardless of what kind of university they are, the only kind of accreditation that is accepted and recognized across America as the highest accreditation there is is what's called regional accreditation. It's called regional accreditation because the United States has been divided into 6 regions. They are geographically identified: the Northwest, the Southeast, the Southern, the Central, the Western, so forth. And these 6 regions, all universities and colleges in America that are regionally accredited, which is the only one that's recognized by everybody. And if you're getting a government job, it's the one you have to have almost exclusively to get a job there. And in business, it's the one that's recognized that you have a valid higher education. That's regional accreditation. There is no apostolic school that has regional accreditation across the board. I don't care what they tell you. They have accreditations such as from a theological association or even from other accrediting associations, but none of them qualify. Don't be fooled by this. None of them qualify for across the board the accepted accreditation by every university in America. That is regional accreditation and only regional accreditation. So, with that in mind, there is only one apostolic school that can offer you regional accreditation, and that's Wilson University, which itself is not yet regionally accredited, but has an affiliation agreement with a university that is regionally accredited. And all of the courses of Wilson University have been vetted by Patton University and have become a part of Patton University. We select all the instructors that have to be, they're apostolic, but they have to be fully qualified. We write the courses, and they have to match the academic rigor and all of the other qualifications. But as far as the content of the courses, 100% of that is done by us. But the accreditation comes because of the affiliation agreement. So this is the only place. Wilson University is the only place in America you can receive a regionally accredited bachelor's degree or master's degree that is available. That it is nowhere else. I'm only saying that because it aggravates me a little bit that people are led to believe by others in their marketing that they are accredited. They are accredited by theological accreditation associations, but they are not accredited by regional accreditation, which is of great importance in a practical and utilitarian sense. That is, if you want a job and if you want it to be recognized, then it needs to be across the board recognition. It needs to be regionally accredited. We offer that. You can receive that at Wilson University, and only at this point from Wilson University. Now, what about Wilson University's own independent accreditation at some time in the future? Well, here's the really good news, is that Wilson University has officially been received by Patton University into what is called incubation. What that means is this regionally accredited university, Patton University, has agreed to take Wilson University, who on its own is not accredited, but its courses are accredited because they have become Pattons, even though we are assigned by Patton to pick the teachers and develop the content. As a result of that, they have agreed in writing to incubate. This is an official term, incubation. They incubate. The accredited institution takes the responsibility to incubate the unaccredited institution and walk them to their accreditation. It is the most guaranteed way that a university will receive accreditation. By that, I don't really mean guarantee, but it is the most sure way that a school has to become accredited. So we're very excited about this. This is a wonderful thing. And we invite you to go to the website of Wilson University and look at this for yourself. And we talked last week about the fact that how courses, even secular, even general education, English, math, and so forth, how that those things are taught. It makes a difference if they're taught from an apostolic worldview, if they're taught from some kind of secular worldview by people who are heathen to every value that apostolics know and embrace and love and understand the critical importance of those values. So here's the next thing. Here's what I've been trying to work to get to. The lowest cost in America that I know of for regionally accredited education, the lowest cost, we're not talking about us now, we're talking about outside of Wilson or Patton, is, that I know of, is Western Governors University. Western Governors University is a university that is the product of collaboration by 19 governors in the Western United States who took a look at education and said higher education has become a problem in that the cost of it is enslaving people for too many years after they graduate to pay back student loans. And so they established a committee of professional people to work on this. And the product of that is Western Governors University. Western Governors University, the last time I checked, it may have changed since then, offers each of their courses per month. And you can go there, as I understand, for $500 a month. And you can go at whatever rate that you choose to finish these courses. So if you're committed enough and have the time and could finish a course in 4.5 weeks, 4 1/3 weeks, you would be doing this work for $500 per course. As far as I know, that is the least expensive, true, highest quality education available in America, except for Wilson University via Patton University. With Wilson Patton, you can get a fully regionally accredited education for $350 a month. There is no place in America that you can receive regionally accredited education. That's the same accreditation as your state university in your state. That's the same accredited education as you name it, whatever great university in America you want to name. That's the same regional accreditation that they have. This is available to you. Now, do you think it is an accident that God has opened this door to apostolics to actually receive an apostolic education that is regionally accredited, that is taught by apostolic instructors, and whose content of each course is designed and then vetted by professional instructional designers and made available for the lowest cost of any university in America? Do you think that's an accident, or would you think maybe that God has supernaturally opened this door? I mean, we're apostolic, so we believe in the supernatural. We believe in the miraculous, that God has opened this door for you, for me, and for all of our friends who know the value of being apostolic, but also know that if that apostolic education is fully accredited, then it is dramatically enhances everything that we're doing. If you're making more money, you're paying more tithe. Your church is more blessed. It does more outreach, okay? There is more to give to missions. There is ministry that becomes your ministry because you have the wherewithal to become a minister in your own right through the giftings and the blessings that God has given to you. Now, this is critical, folks. Don't let anybody tell you you're supposed to just sit back and that you're inadequate and that you can't do these things and that you couldn't do it anyway and you didn't do good in high school. You need to get over all that. And you need to say, my life in 2018 is going to count. And I'm going to make sure that it counts. And I know where I can do it, and that's Wilson University. So this is what we're talking about here today. We're not just talking about selling people on something. We are talking about people being availed of an opportunity that has never been here before. 2 years ago, we couldn't offer this to you. 2 years ago, to take one course in Wilson University would have cost you, on the average, a bachelor or AA course. Not talking about a master's. A bachelor's or an AA course would have cost you about $1,200. Wasn't anything we could do about that. If you go to any accredited university, that is about, and in others it's much more, that is about what you're going to pay, the minimum of what you're going to pay for each course that you take in an accredited, regionally accredited institution. So, in Wilson University, because of our affiliation with Patton University, you can take these courses, and if you had time and could do them in a month, and we have people that are doing them in a month or less, not all the courses, but there are some courses, then you would be getting them for $350 a course. If it took you twice that long, you're getting them for $700 a course, as opposed to $1,200 a course. What we're offering here, we've made even comparisons with our own Bible schools. This is the equivalent in almost every case. This is less expensive than going to an unaccredited Bible school. So my care in saying that is that I'm not trying to diss the Bible schools, because there are things there that have value. But I'm just telling you the truth. And the truth is, you don't have to leave your home. Your church, if you're a pastor listening to me, your church doesn't have to lose some of its best workers to go off to school somewhere. They do it right there at home. There will be all of the interaction with you as pastor that you want, or as parent that you want, that we can supply to you. We don't want them to come here. We want them to grow in the place that God has put them. So these are all things that are real. And the reason this is so revolutionary to people, I have educators in the apostolic movement that are saying, kind of behind my back, that's impossible. That is not impossible. This is a reality. Check it out. Go to the website. Go to Wilson University. Go to Patton University website. Check it out for yourself, and you will see that this is a revolution in higher education. And it's been given, of all people in the world, it's been given to apostolics. You need to realize what God is doing, and he's doing it because he loves you. And I'm excited about it. So I didn't know that it would take the whole time to talk about this, but it's worthy to be talked about. And you're setting at the beginning of 2018, this is a time for you to make a decision to say, I'm going to be the best apostolic I can be. And I'm going to be world class because I'm made in the image of God. All right. So anyway, I'm glad to be with you today. I'm Dr. Nathaniel Wilson. I'm here for you. And I'm thankful that God has opened this door for all of us. See you next week.
A production of allapostolic.com.